Good morning. It is good to be back from our pilgrimage in Africa. It was a blessing to see our brothers and sisters in the Anglican Diocese of Kondoa in Tanzania, and we gladly bring their greetings to you. As Christians, our going out on pilgrimage in Africa was a journey walked in faith. Any pilgrimage consists of trusting that God is leading the way, especially on this trip. We were blessed that all three of the girls on the trip were mature for their age and embraced the pilgrimage, the people, and events. It was a rich experience. Heidi, Sophia, and I look forward to sharing it with you in September during Good Shepherd and the World. Our readings today speak of living a life of faith, of trusting God and being present in whatever situations we find ourselves, which is what pilgrimage is all about. Our gospel reading comes at the conclusion of Jesus preparing his disciples for ministry. To be a disciple of Jesus is a walk of faith. For the disciples, they are to go out and share the message, trusting whatever happens, they are not alone. Jesus' message speaks about if they are welcomed, then Jesus is welcomed, and God is welcomed. And those who offer welcome will receive the reward according to their welcome. The disciples are to receive the welcome. And if they are not welcomed, you remember, they are to kick the dust off their sandals and travel on. In Kondoa, we were so warmly welcomed, taken care of, and loved. Even the neighborhood children, many of whom were Muslim, came running up to us, hugging us as we arrived at the Mothers Union guest house. And when we were leaving, they chased after our car all the way down the street and around the corner until they could no longer keep up, smiling and waving all the way. The children bonded with our girls as they played pickup sticks and kicked the soccer ball around. And Bishop's staff held traditional African ceremonies, one for a wedding, one for a birthday, to recognize and celebrate life events that we had going on. And when we received news of Harry's death, Bishop Gibbon called all the people in the house together to honor Harry's life as Bishop pastorally ministered to our grief. In that moment, we were living our faith. It was a Christian expression of love and was especially important on this pilgrimage, with two of our girls unaccustomed to church or seeing others living out their faith publicly. We grieved that evening, and the next day, we opened our hearts and souls to what the day would bring. In our reading in Genesis, God is testing Abraham. Throughout their relationship, God has made promises. Abraham has walked with God. Sometimes Abraham was better at being faithful than others. But now God needs to know the depth and commitment of Abraham's trust and faith. This is a story which invites us to pay attention as God emphatically calls Abraham. Abraham's response is open and trusting. Here I am. And then comes the test as God instructs Abraham. Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains that I shall show you. Hagar and Ishmael are gone, sent away. Now after that loss, God commands Abraham to present his only son, the promised future, on the altar as a burnt offering to God. It is a sacrificial offering, an act of faith, a giving to God of what Abraham most loves and cherishes, which is the only true sacrifice anyone can give. And the next morning, Abraham prepares to go. He saddles his donkey, takes 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son. He cuts the wood for the burnt offering and sets out. He travels to the place God has shown him. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw the place far away. Then Abraham said to his young men, "Stay here with the donkey. The boy and I will go over there. We will worship, and then we will come back to you." If you noticed, Abraham's statement is one expressing trust and faith in God as he says, "We will go, we will worship, and we will come back." He has faith that God will make a way. As they go, Isaac says, "Father," and Abraham replies, "Here I am, my son." Once again, Abraham is present and open to Isaac, just as he had been with God. And Isaac says, "The fire and the wood are here, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering?" The response is steady and sure. God himself will provide the lamb for a burnt offering, my son. And they walked on together. Isaac accepts his father's word, trusting in God and having faith as his father does. Abraham continues with the ritual, binding Isaac and laying him on the wood on the altar he built. As he reached for his knife, the angel intervened, emphatically calling Abraham's name. Again, Abraham's response is steady and sure, trusting and open. "Here I am." And he said, "Do not lay your hand on the boy or do anything to him, for now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me." In that moment, Abraham looks up once again and sees a ram caught in a thicket by its horns, and he offers the ram as the burnt offering. Throughout the story, we see a progression of Abraham remaining present, open, trusting, and having faith in God. He is steadfast, even as he prepares to offer his son as sacrifice. So much was riding on his faith. The history of faith as we know it in the Hebrew and Christian Bible is forged in this story. God's trust and faith also are expressed in this story. At any point, Abraham could have made a different choice. He could have denied God's request or actually killed Isaac if he hadn't been listening and paying attention to God's presence. And God could have lost too. He had placed his trust in Abraham. This was Abraham's test of faith. If Abraham had disobeyed, it would have revealed a lack of trust in God. But through his obedience, now God knows that Abraham's faith is solid. Through his obedience, informed and undergirded by trust that God will find a way through the dark moment, is a lesson in faith for us. His demeanor of being open and steadfast, trusting, is a lesson in how to live a life of faith. We so often move through things so quickly. And we operate out of our own motivations. Rarely do we wait on God. And then we wonder why everything goes topsy-turvy and upside down. Or when it becomes really dark, we may not have the strength and trust to rest in that darkness and wait for the light to break. A life based in faith, in a life based in faith, we're to step forward in faith, one step at a time, trusting that God is present, even when it seems most dark. But a life in faith is chosen, moment by moment, as we listen and look for God at work in the world, trusting even when we do not see nor hear. Throughout the trip to Africa, we were each called forth to pray at different times publicly aloud, to share our faith with people we encountered. For our pilgrims, it may have been the first time they had to step out in faith in such a way, witnessing to the truth of God in their lives. Have you ever had to do such a thing? How do you live into the faith that you hold in your heart every day? Are you willing to step out in faith, trusting that God will provide and God will always be there, even in the darkest moments?